If you're in the construction industry, you might ask yourself the question, why do I need workers' compensation? If you're in Florida, it's because the law says you've got to have it. And that's the simple answer. You don't have to have the insurance, but you're made responsible if a person gets hurt on your job to pay their medical bills and their indemnity. That's the reason you need workers' compensation coverage. My name is Don Cleveland. I'm the president of NPR Fintra, Inc. and Insurance Marketplace Resources. Workers' compensation in the state of Florida, according to the statutes, is a duty that's imposed upon you. In other words, you as an employer of people working in the construction sector, you are made responsible by the law not to buy workers' compensation insurance, but on the other hand, they're telling you that you have to pay the indemnity and the medical bills of anyone injured on the job. It isn't that you have to buy workers' compensation, but if you don't buy it, who's going to pay the bill? And the answer to that is that you turn to an insurance company that has much deeper assets and pockets than you have and get them to pay the bill by buying workers' compensation. Let's take a look at where the responsibility comes from in the statute. Florida statute section 440.10 tells you just have to have one employee in the construction industry to be subject to the workers' compensation laws of the state of Florida. And you think, well, if I have a subcontractor, he's not an employee. But here's the trick. In the law, if you have a subcontractor who is not insured or doesn't have workers' compensation, the law says he is your employee. When you go on the job and you hire subs, you have to make sure they have workers' compensation coverage, because if they don't, you're the boss, you're the employer. If one of their employees gets hurt, you have to pay the hospital bills, the medical bills, and the indemnity. You can also be subject to a fine of up to $5,000 for each uninsured subcontractor. We're going to take a look now at exempting yourself versus not exempting yourself from the workers' compensation statutes and workers' compensation insurance. It's section 440.5 of the Florida statutes, which allows you to exempt yourself from coverage under workers' compensation. The only problem is that only officers of a corporation may exempt themselves from coverage. And in the construction industry, those officers must own at least 10% of the corporate interests. In addition to that, only 3 of the corporate officers in any one corporation may exempt themselves from the workers' compensation coverage and requirements. But first of all, when you do that, that means that you're not covered. So if you're not covered and you're a small business, a small contractor, and you're out there on the job and you get injured, who's going to pay your medical bill? Who's going to pay your indemnity? Who's going to pay your mortgage? Who's going to take care of your family? In my opinion, and what I advise all of our insureds to do, is don't exempt yourself without thinking about who's going to cover all of those items. Workers' comp is the cheapest form of indemnity coverage that you can buy. So don't just pass it up. Take a second look at paying the small premium to get the coverage you need to protect your family and yourself in the event you're injured on the job. Now, one other aspect about being exempt is you've taken yourself out of the workers' compensation statute by exempting yourself. But if you come to work for me and at my home or in my business and you get hurt at my place, naturally, you can't take action against me because you've exempted yourself from the law. But what the law doesn't do is it doesn't say that your dependents, your wife or your children, or others who depend upon you, can't sue me as the homeowner or the business owner because they don't have the income that you provided to them, and they would accuse me of being negligent in causing your injury. So personally, I do not hire people to come into my home or to come into my business to do work for me if they're in the construction industry, who, as a matter of fact, don't have proof of workers' compensation insurance. I don't want to run that risk. Now, lastly, workers' compensation can be complicated. Keeping the records, undergoing an audit, doing all kinds of things that relate to payroll and proof of payroll. That can be too much sometimes for a small business. If you think that way, if you feel that way, then you should take a look at what's called a PEO. That's a professional employer organization. And that organization is a company that's established itself to bundle everything in relation to personnel and employment into one package. You can pay a small percent of the payroll you have to that PEO and take advantage of workers' compensation that's payable on a monthly basis with no audit at the end of the year. You can also have their human resources department work for you. And beyond that, you get full processing of payroll, including all the payments and calculations related to taxes and withholding. So you, your wife, or other family member doesn't have to struggle doing that. And again, it's available for only a small percentage of your payroll. There are even some PEOs that will let you skip a month or a week on payroll, but charge you a small administrative fee. And that sort of fits the mode of people in the construction industry. Sometimes they have a lot of work, sometimes you have a little work. So skipping a payroll every now and then doesn't hurt. How do you know if you're in the construction industry? The Department of Labor in the state of Florida, Rule 6.021, gives a list of the classifications of occupations which are included in the construction industry. If you have a question or a comment, just leave it in the comment section or give us a call at any time. We're available for you.